This is a Gayatri sound healing daily alignment practice, often done first in the morning to set intention and the energy for the day. And I'm sharing this practice for your body, mind, emotions, and spirit because each time you do it, it strengthens as an intention and confirmation and expands into all your systems. This Gayatri has 3 parts. Here is the definition of a Gayatri. It is a group of highly revered sacred words that contain knowledge, education, and virtue, uplifts our body, mind, and spirit, and builds over time the more you do it. The sacred words of the Gayatri are a mantra and a female expression of the light of the sun, which imparts the light and wisdom of the entire cosmos in our being, purifying the heart and for receptivity for higher vibrations. As you repeat the words, stand preferably facing east with your feet shoulder width apart. Relax knees and arms out to your sides at the level of your shoulders with your palms open going upward, and allowing yourself to breathe easily and effortlessly and bringing your body into alignment over your feet. Stand in the sunlight outside or visualize the sun's rays streaming forth into earth everywhere, and entering your heart. Visualize the sun's rays streaming out from your heart and blessing the world. Feel the energy of this blessing as I repeat the words, and join with me. I'll repeat the words 3 times. You whose rays illuminate the earth, let thy rays illuminate my heart, so I too may do your work. You whose rays illuminate the earth, let thy rays illuminate my heart, so I too may do your work. And the last time, you whose rays illuminate the earth, let thy rays illuminate my heart, so I too may do your work. Deep breath, inhale and exhale, and relax. The second component of this Gayatri is to visualize from your inner center within your body, which is below your belly button. And if you take 3 fingers and put them at the bottom of your belly button, at the bottom of the 3rd finger is the exterior point. But this point is midway between your hips and between the front and your back, and not attached to any organs or a chakra or any tissue. So this point is a point of light, like a starlight in the night sky. So take a moment to locate this point of light within you. It is always present. It is bringing your awareness to its location. There is a beautiful thread of luminous energy that extends from this point easily and effortlessly through your body and your perineum, gently into the earth center, traveling through the strata of earth gently and easily and quickly. And this connection goes to the very center of the earth and is your connection always through the day to the center. And take as long as you need. And when you've created this anchor into the earth center, take a deep breath, inhale and exhale. This is a confirmation and affirmation of your willingness to be present this day on earth. And the 3rd component of the Gayatri is a clearing and activation of all of your chakras and your energy system, and secondary and tertiary auric fields, creating a beautiful luminous field of energy around you. And as you hear the melody that goes with this process, join in through humming or toning with the sounds and the song. It's an ancient sacred chant, so connect to each chakra, starting from the root, spleen, solar plexus, heart, throat, brow, crown, and additional chakras off the body and the outer fields of energy until you feel the energy. So this means that you may use this melody for a longer period of time from one chakra to the other until you feel that you have done that clearing process. So for today, I'm going a little more quickly than you would do on your own.
We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the ones we've been waiting for. It is your destiny calling to you and me. Awakening deep within your soul, deep within your soul, occurs in radiation, inner navigation, new and familiar sensations. It is our true creation. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the ones we've been waiting for. The possibilities emerge for you and me, seeking beyond the known, guidance forsworn from long ago, seeking the solutions, another revolution, living your contribution, souls in evolution. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the ones we've been waiting for, finding our way back home, calling our way back home.
Hi there. Welcome to another presentation of the Globe Sound Healing Conference. Now we have Susan Sophia James. Hi there, Susan.
Hi, David. Nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Welcome, welcome. Dr. Susan Sophia James is a doctor of behavioral health and an advanced intuitive and mystic with 30 years of experience using sound healing with mental health diagnosis, anxiety and depression, cancer, and immune-compromised illness, pain, sleep, and with people in their spiritual awakening journey. Excellent. What have you been up to lately?
I've been working on getting some programs out there so that people can use them that kind of address different issues that we're facing on the planet right now using sound.
Tell me more.
I like to use particular rhythms and sound patterns that have effects on shifting consciousness. So they take people into states where they access resilience and develop a relationship with the process and that deepens over time, that boosts their immune system, and also gives them tools for resources when you're going through challenging times or getting good sleep or on the spiritual awakening journey, and also help with mental health issues.
Cool. Okay, so here's the big question. If you had all the money in the world, what would you do to help people on the planet?
Gosh, probably give everybody a base income so they could have healthcare and food and housing.
Excellent. Nice. Get the basic needs taken care of. Okay, so what's your presentation about?
My presentation is on using particular sound and music rhythms and patterns and tones that shift consciousness, that are really ancient practices that were used in community in older cultures, and there's still evidence of those cultures in certain places that are still using them to shift consciousness, but also to release trauma, develop insight, creativity, problem solving, and really are part of our evolution.
Excellent. Let's begin.
Great.
Okay.
Shifting the paradigm simply by listening. So simply by listening, we have access to methods that transform how we navigate through our world, dealing with healing, trauma, recovery, lessening depression and anxiety, getting good sleep, and dealing with pain. And simply by listening, we can transform how we manage the challenges we all face in our lives, from going to the dentist, litigation, surgery, flying, and many other situations that are challenges. And simply by listening, we also are able to shift our consciousness into the mystical, where we develop our inner wisdom and transform and connect to states that develop our insight, problem solving, creativity, and intuition and resilience, which are powerful tools for our evolution. So continuous use expands over time and is a significant and reliable resource. Here's what's covered in the Shifting the Paradigm Simply by Listening presentation. And first is my introduction, my story and research, how I got here, and the ancient use and history of sound healing. And the trifecta is simultaneously occurring impacts that are required to achieve the simply by listening to shift our paradigm. And number 4 is alchemical effects of the particular sound listening, and the application of epigenetics and research, and then some sound examples that are transformational, And finally, number 7, applications for our physical body, mind, emotions, and spirit, addressing issues of our time. So I'm Dr. Susan Sophia James. I'm a doctor of behavioral health and integrated medicine, and an advanced intuitive and mystic, and a medical hypnotherapist. And I've always been interested in music and have always sung and could pick up instruments and play by ear. When I was a young child, I remember probably about 3 looking down at my body from being on the ceiling, and that I had different intuitive abilities, but I didn't really realize that until I was older, that other people didn't have the same experiences. And when I really understood a lot of them, I was writing a book, 55 plus kinds of intuition, and realized I had 43 different kinds of intuition, not all occurring at the same time. And a lot of them, or I have different kinds of auditory and clairaudience. So I've also always had an interest in consciousness development, heightened states of awareness, and ways we can access super learning and living differently. So, and 4 women I studied with who were very influential, although only one used sound and music. So I studied with a woman named Shirley Nelson, who worked for the Tucson Police Department, finding missing children as a psychic using school photos. And this is back in the late 1980s, so there were no cell phone photos at that time. And this is a kind of advanced remote viewing. And Shirley also did something called Tibetan sound blowing, which led me to study with Jill Peirce, where I learned hearing harmonic overtones and singing the harmonic overtones. And at the same time, I was studying rhythms and patterns and applying them with meditation. So I also became a hypnotherapist during this time, where in some instances, repetitive sounds facilitate transforming consciousness into levels of hypnosis. And another woman I studied with was Heather Valencia, who called herself at that time the wife of the Yaqui medicine man, and later changed her name to Cherokee shaman. And she was a dreaming teacher in different dimensions and levels of consciousness. And that where I studied was on the Yaqui reservation, and Don Juan Matus had built a couple of the rooms that were from the older part of the house. So for anybody who's read Carlos Castaneda. And then I was also apprenticed to a woman who was half Lakota, and she was a medicine woman healer for 17 years. That was part of the more esoteric background. And then I started working at a cancer and immune compromised illness clinic, where people came from different parts of the United States to get treatment, and that was very innovative. And I was also working at a residential treatment center for women with mental health diagnosis, including depression and anxiety, bipolar, and other diagnoses co-occurring with trauma and addictions. And during this time, I created a specific sound and music programs that I used at both these places. And I also had a 2-year sound and energy medicine program that I ran for about 15 years. And all of these places were experiencing the same sound and music programs. And what I learned is that people were transformed by listening. Many people reported they had not been able to meditate before and had given up. Some people would be so touched they would cry. There were resolutions to longstanding issues and relationships and insights. And several people told me they even had forgotten the issues were of concern to them, but felt such a relief. And a couple people even told me the program saved their life. So the people in the sound and energy medicine program had a variety of different spiritual awakening experiences, from near-death experiences, Shaktipa, extreme dream experiences, out-of-body experiences. And there were also a variety of deep experiences through listening to these sound and music meditations that gave them grounding and insight, transformation, and continued their path in their spiritual awakening journey. Another place where I saw the use of the specific sound and music listening was dealing with challenging situations like going to the dentist, having surgery, getting good sleep through litigation or other upheavals that cause us stress. And an experience I had was when I was at the endodontist getting a root canal, was the endodontist said, "Wow, that's like you weren't even here," which was great because I didn't want to get in the way of him doing a good job. Because of all the benefits I saw with the different populations I had worked in, when I started working later in internal medicine, in primary care with an MD who specialized in working with people with chronic pain, I decided that I could do research with the same sound and music protocols with the pain patients. So I did this research through Arizona State University, and the outcomes revealed that people experienced less pain. They felt they had more control over their pain than before because the pain had felt like it was controlling their lives. Their sleep was improved, their depression significantly decreased, and their mood improved. And they were able to get better sleep. During this time, at the end of that research, I started a business with a business partner, and that didn't work out. And there were many other doors that shut, and I realized all these avenues were not available to go down. And I was feeling kind of frustrated and challenged. So I started writing books and making videos about some of the programs I had been doing. And then later, the pandemic happened. And probably like most people, I was on social media quite a bit. And I realized there were a couple things happening. One was there was beginning to be more awareness about how prevalent depression and anxiety were. And so they were being noticed, but also that depression and anxiety and other mental health issues, plus isolation, were increasing because of the pandemic. And I realized I could take all of the sound and music protocols and integrative practices that I had created into online programs to help with the different areas of managing challenges, lessening pain and depression and anxiety, with content for the different populations I'd worked with in getting good sleep, as well as spiritual awakening and transformative experiences, because I've been doing it for years and decades. So it took me several years to build all the components into online systems that were easy and affordable and give the benefits. So now the next segment is the ancient application of sound medicine and sound healing. So independent of each other, different cultures worldwide developed the ancient use of particular instruments, depth of particular sounds, repeating patterns, and frequencies that shift the listener's perspective profoundly. The intentional changes bridge waking consciousness as a sound healing therapy for different purposes to heal trauma, spiritual relationship issues, mental health concerns, physical healing, resolving conflict, and facilitating shifts in consciousness that are transformational. And you'll notice as we go along, there are repeating themes that show up that reveal the value of particular sound and music in these disparate cultures. In ancient Greece, about 200 years before the Common Era, Pythagoras has been identified to be one of the first people to discover the relationship between musical harmony and the mathematical harmony of numbers. And Pythagoras was a prominent person to recognize the value of music and learn to prescribe specific music for sound healing for the physical body, ailments of the mind, and emotions. And in digging deeper, Pythagoras was trained in Delphi, Greece, by the seer priestess and prophet Themistoclea. So this is an image of kind of a classic image of the oracle sitting on the tripod giving channeled information. In Egypt, Abdel Hakim Ayan shared about the sound chambers underneath the pyramids and other special locations. The reverberations in these chambers have potent healing properties, and there's more to be revealed by other people about these sound healing chambers. The Bosnian pyramids also have underground chambers that have amazing reverberations of sound that are also theorized to profoundly affect people. Victor Shamas, the psychologist, mentions his experience of going into a sacred sound cave in Mexico with a guide. The sound reverberations are used for shifting and accessing higher levels of consciousness and transformation. However, the cave is only accessed through an indigenous person who knows where the cave is and how it affects listening and the sounds. And it's held in a sacred way, which means it's not accessible to anybody. And it's likely there are other caves for these same purposes around the world that remain sacred, protected, and hidden. So like the training that Pythagoras learned from Themistoclea, in India, Vedic mantras were begun around 1,000 years before the Common Era, with application for healing as well. So mantras are considered ways to release negative thoughts, create inner alignment and focus, and create a healthier state of mind as a therapeutic resource. And in some applications, a mantra is considered to cure illness and emotional problems and achieve higher levels of consciousness. So transcending perceptions of space and time. Mantras and their repetition, our sound and tone, are considered a spiritual formula of magical resonance that has an interconnection that shifts consciousness and is transformational. While mantras were being used in India in 1000 BC, an even older tradition unique to the northern Australian Aborigines is the sound of the didgeridoo, that induces relaxing brain waves, releases pain and emotional blocks, and increases circulation based on research. So this 60,000-year-old tradition accesses the three brains, the brain of the stomach, the brain of the heart, and the brain of the mind or head, using the didgeridoo's vibrations. So the vibration enters the body and shakes the cells, accessing cellular memory, and helps to release blocked energy. So the didgeridoo sounds also transfer into states of consciousness, including the dream time. And Aboriginal healers also use traditional vocalizations, chants, repetitions to remove and release negative energies from the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual bodies. In the previous examples, you probably noticed the similarities where particular repeating sound patterns in the same tones creates and develops the relationship with the process that allows the listener to shift consciousness, go deeper, relax more easily and quicker, and access simultaneous positive changes, which occurs throughout these different practices in brain waves, heart rate, and respiration. These simultaneous changes are called the relaxation response, and that was identified by Herbert Benson, who was an MD. They also boost the immune system and create feelings of well-being and happiness, connection into the body and mind and spirit, and develop resilience, which is really important, and inner wisdom. The overall takeaway, there are specific sound and musical tones, frequencies, patterns, and rhythms that connect and help to transform our mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual being that are transformative. One of the significant and main instruments used throughout the world in ancient times and in many cultures today is the sound of particular drum rhythms. These particular rhythms and patterns facilitate shifts in consciousness through positive changes in heart rate, brain waves, and respiration for the individual and the group simultaneously. Here are photos of disparate regions today where people draw upon drum rhythms. The first image is of a group of people from Oklahoma. This image is from a group of people in Poland. This group of women is from the Sami Nation, who are the white reindeer shaman who are in northern Norway and Sweden. They're at Standing Rock. And this image is of some people in Finland. This image is of people in Morocco. And this image is of a group of Métis women in Oshawa-Durham region of Ottawa, Canada. And this image is of a group of African men. So in nearly everyone's history, we have the sound of the drum. Alchemy and the components of transformation and what creates the feeling of transformation. This is about the trifecta. So what is the ancient sacred universal trifecta? So powerful, you haven't heard of it before. There are three elements that come together to create a dynamic, potent force. In ancient times, these three significant components were always put together for people, because they don't work without each other, that transform people into heightened states of consciousness. There were always protocols about how to access these states, and the trifecta effects were not kept from others, but integrated into the culture. I've wondered if there was an intentional agenda to create estrangement from these practices because they've almost been lost, because they've become so unfamiliar to us, we almost forgot we were estranged from them. And because the practices are individually transformative, and they're also transformative when groups listen to them, to be used in community for healing of the mind, emotions, and physical body, and connection to our inner spiritual development. So more about this in our next segment on epigenetics. What's the trifecta that has all these attributes and that changes us profoundly and consistently? Here are the elements of the transformative trifecta. Number one is often, almost always, there's listening to a voice that speaks to us literally and metaphorically through our being, that guides us and offers a resonance and easy to listen to message that comes from the heart. The voice consists of vocal frequencies, highly articulate tones, and modulations, expressing almost as an instrument. And as we listen to the guidance of the voice, we hear the message, words, tones, and feel the feeling that carries us as well, transports us into our deeper connection through the heart into the symbols in our consciousness. The second key area of the trifecta are the patterns of rhythm. The patterns and the rhythm are literally embedded into our beings through how we live, through our own heartbeat rhythm, our brainwave activity, through the rhythm of our cerebral spinal fluid, which flows around our spine and up around our brain, which is like the ocean moving in and out through the pulsations of our electromagnetic fields. So pulsation patterns are the waves of the ocean, the sunlight, the electromagnetic field of the earth. But we know all pulsations aren't the same, so they have to be specific pulsations that affect us. And when we listen, that change our respiration, heart, and brain waves. So while some rhythms are energetic or intricate dance rhythms or really slow moving, the trifecta rhythms are very specific and transformative. So the listener relies on those specific rhythmic patterns to be consistent, to sustain the shift in consciousness where they connect, and it gently carries them and holds them from the beginning to the end through the whole process. Third part of the trifecta are the tones and frequencies. So we know certain tones are grating, irritating, they can be interruptive or disruptive, and other tones and frequencies are just benign. They don't really have an effect on us. And so the trifecta tones and frequencies are specific, they're resonating, penetrating, but not jarring, gentle, but powerful, comforting, consistent, satisfying, and easy. So with the repetition of the sound patterns and the familiarity, the listener becomes familiar with the changes that occur, that access the feeling, and the process becomes quicker and easier, which means that the more you engage with the practice, the easier it becomes to shift consciousness. And the connection to the process even deepens over time. So there can be a deeper connection, like accessing ancient sacred memory. So this process is called entrainment and a resonance with the particular sound patterns that shifts our consciousness. How listening to specific sound and music patterns are like listening to a lullaby. And when a child listens to a lullaby, they're awake and they need to go to sleep, or maybe they're having a difficult time, they're in distress, they're unwinding. So usually, if not all the time, people who play a lullaby for a child, they use the same music over and over because the child gets listened to, they become accustomed to it, and whether they're singing or playing the music. So the child listens to the music and it carries them into a relaxed state where they go from wherever they are, from waking or distress, into relaxation, which happens pretty quickly sometimes, and then, which is the between state. And then they go from there into sleep, and it's gentle and easy. And for some reason, we're not applying that concept to teens and adults. So that could be useful. That same idea could be useful for teens. And definitely, like children, adults can listen to specific sounds and music patterns that transport the listener as smoothly as a child, like listening to a lullaby. And this is about repetitions. So part of what creates the effect of our response is that human beings are wired to respond to repetition. So repetition trains us through the resonance of matching, also called entrainment, where we connect to the patterns as they change us through listening. The particular repetitions of sound patterns cues our heart rate, respiration, brainwaves. So it's not like you play them for a moment. They have to be continuous repetitions to stay in that receptive state and that trusting unfolds the process, it holds the space through the repeating patterns for us to sustain that place where we rest in developing resilience and getting all the benefits. Epigenetics and research, the collision also of grassroots movements and epigenetics. So what is epigenetics? The epi part of the word means above our genetic response. So basically it's saying that we have basic responses to our environment and to the stressors that we experience in our life. And the epi part means we can access stimulating our system, our genetics, that changes how the codes are responding. And instead of allowing dysregulation, we can actually go in and prevent that based on our behavior. So this means that instead of changes in our immune system or a weakening of it, dysregulation and inflammation, and which is part of cardiovascular disease, chronic pain, addiction, and diabetes. So epigenetics refers to connecting responses where we stimulate genetic switches to not turn on, where the systems are failing, but instead supports our immune system and the different systems of our body so they don't experience a weakening. So how is epigenetics related to particular sound and music listening? The research shows the evidence of listening to particular sound and music has effects on the human gene regulation and prevents neurons from degeneration, just like the same as meditation. And more information on this, if you want more research, is on my resource page at 3, the number 3, and it's melete.com. There are different unconnected grassroots movements that emphasize accessing other levels of consciousness that provide healing, insight, understanding, and transformation, and are really connected to this movement that's occurring and related to epigenetics. The International Association for Near-Death Studies gives people a platform to share their transformational experiences similar to the Spiritual Awakening International Group, where people are able to share the variety of their experiences, as well as the International Spiritual Emergency Network, where people get support instead of pathologicalizing their experience. So these are 3 that are pretty prevalent, that are contributing to shifting the paradigm about accessing other levels of consciousness. Other areas where our culture is changing perspective on drawing upon other levels of consciousness includes the use of psychedelics for dealing with PTSD and trauma and resolution of issues. There's also a rise in the interest in using channeling, accessing another level of consciousness. And there is the work of Stephen Greer and also the Crazy Wise movement, that term coined by Phil Borges. And the Crazy Wise movement presents that people with experiences previously medicated or institutionalized and pathologicalized in Western culture require kindness and care rather than all the other responses and isolation. And beyond this, other isolated cultures isolated from our Western influence, regard when people have significant experiences, these changes, they're connecting to another realm of consciousness, and their contribution is important to their community. So they are taken in by someone who understands that and giving them the guidance to continue, the guidance for balance, integration, and how to manage the energy. Moving beyond looks like opening awareness to our human development through systems that are directly applicable not only to prevalent conditions, but to further our evolution. So all of these cultures collectively are saying that these other states of consciousness are very important. So having tools to connect to them that shifts our brainwaves, heart rate, and respiration. They develop resilience, creativity, insight, problem solving, and release stress, and increase melatonin and dopamine production, and also are interruptions into the previous status quo of how other levels of consciousness weren't valued. And they benefit our genetic responses. So accessing these shifts in consciousness, also meditative states, is not for emergencies or a one-time intervention, but like in ancient times is beneficial as a connection to our own mysticism, our inner wisdom, transformation, as an alchemical power that is innate to us. So having tools to access them regularly is necessary for our own balance and evolution. What are the characteristics of these sacred alchemical sounds and music that activate our epigenetics? Here is the following list of 15 different areas that contribute to the responses and changes that are consistent throughout listening to these sound and music practices. Number 1, the listener transitions from ordinary consciousness into a receptive state simply by listening. 2 is the simultaneous diminishing of our awareness of the outer environment and ordinary consciousness while our inner awareness expands. 3, repetitions, patterns, and frequencies create allowing of the unfolding of the process and our receptivity to the process. 4, the entire sound experience creates containment, beginning, a middle, and an end. 5, there's simultaneous shifts in brain waves, heart rate, and respiration, as mentioned in how the Northern Australian Aborigines consider the 3 brains: the brain of the stomach, solar plexus, the brain of the heart, and the brain of the mind. And 6, connection to the qualities of the heart, a sense of spaciousness, heart opening, which is different than mindful meditation of the mind. The release or loosening, even a small amount, of the ego restrictions, which also assists in our perception of blocks and in the release of blocks, brings potential for hidden information, hidden content into awareness in a non-threatening way for healing, getting permission, and problem solving, new ideas, insights, and intuition. 9, there's an indirect and direct resolution of issues, the opportunity for that, and also for challenges, healing, understanding relationships, connection to personal purpose, and the results of epigenetic switches. 10 is the entire process develops resilience, and resilience is inner strength and the ability to problem solve, navigating in a more centered way, especially through challenges, and connection to resources. Number 11 is diminishes stress and cortisol, which also diminishes depression and anxiety. 12 is releasing dopamine and melatonin, which are the feel-good chemicals. And 13, the listener has the potential to access deeper states of brainwave activity, especially when they continue the practices. So going from beta, ordinary consciousness, to more relaxed states, alpha, and then potentially theta, delta, and gamma. And there are other deeper states, but these are the ones that I mentioned are the most accessible. And 14 are changes in perception of our normal sense of time. So after returning from an experience, the time in the process can either seem longer or shorter than how we experience time. And 15, the experience is much like a dream in remembering content is fleeting. So recording the experience through journaling is beneficial and also helps to notice patterns if you can refer back. Collectively, this tells us human beings were never designed to stay or thrive in one level of consciousness. Accessing other levels of consciousness is part of our evolution, but it's how we integrate and manage the experiences that provides guidance, balance, integration, and continued growth. As in ancient cultures, regular connecting with the numinous was a significant component for the health of the community and the individual. So the next step is to know accessing these states is not for an emergency, or a one-time intervention, but it's for restoration, developing inner wisdom, and holding that, sustaining that connection and our connection to our mysticism and evolution, which is a power and process that is transformational. The next segment is the sound and music transformational samples. These examples are only snippets. So often when a person is beginning to listen to these particular sounds, rhythms, and tones, it takes around 10 to 15 minutes of consistent, non-interrupted listening to feel the shift into the relaxation response and the changes. So with familiarity and listening to those particular sound and music, you'll feel the feeling significantly quicker, and it will transport the listener. So the time it takes to shift over becomes quicker and easier. And so when that happens, the person will just immediately hear the sounds, and they'll take an inhale and exhale breath, probably without even noticing, and begin the process of changing. But when you're first listening to these patterns, it's very likely you're not going to feel that shift, because we're not going to have 10 or 15 minutes of listening. These are the same particular sound and music patterns that I've been using to effectively shift consciousness to get all the benefits with all the different groups of people that I worked with that I mentioned before. So when you listen to the examples, allow yourself to take a deep breath, inhale and exhale, and relax and shut your eyes. So there are 3 examples, and I'll play them consecutively. And the first is the heartbeat drum. The second is Tibetan bowls and rain. And the third is ocean. And these samples don't reflect the entire sound and music, but are only this portion. So each example will play for 1.5 minutes. And at the end of each one, continue to keep your eyes shut, and the next example will play. I won't introduce each one. Here is the heartbeat drum rhythm. Now that you've heard some of the sound patterns, here are the programs that are for specific applications relevant to our time. Harkening back to more ancient times when sound and music listening was used for specific conditions and circumstances, and referencing the beginning of this presentation of Pythagoras and the Northern Australian Aborigines who use specific sound and music for physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual conditions, and for evolution of consciousness. And I consider the following programs address core issues that draw upon the relaxation response and the characteristics mentioned earlier, while addressing the specific concern they're devised for. And they all also develop insight, creativity, problem solving, intuition, and resilience. And our mental and emotional states are enhanced, and research shows a state of deep relaxation, reduction of stress, anxiety, and depression, and improved focus and concentration, plus enhancement of cognitive abilities and support of the immune system and alleviation of insomnia symptoms. The first program is the Managing Pain program. So we all know in our lifetime, we'll probably experience some kind of physical pain. Most common is back pain, also knee, hip, and shoulder pain and headaches. And because of the beneficial research that I did with pain patients in primary care, I created the Managing Pain program. And pain can be chronic from illness, accident, or disease. And 20% of adults will experience pain, and 17% of those will have severe pain. So you can see there's a need to apply different methods to manage pain, because often the most ones that are used are medication. And that means that medication can be used with this program, but this is also something to consider. So using particular sound and music to facilitate accessing the relaxation response and the changes in heart rate, brainwave, and respiration releases the levels of pain, improves control over pain, and instead of having the pain feel like it's controlling the person, the level of pain diminishes, and there's an elevation of mood. And usually when people have especially chronic pain, depression is lessened, and anxiety and irritability, and it's easier to sleep. And the healing program. The healing program is for all kinds of recovery, for addictions, trauma, mental health diagnosis, and physical health. There is integrated content for the physical body, mind, emotions, and spirit. And there's features. This is all based on research that shows specific sound listening provides reduction in blood pressure, pain relief, cellular regeneration, enhanced immune function, and increased vitality. It's also useful for improvement in recovery after surgery. And there's a link to restoration from ailments, inflammation, and digestive disorders. And deep relaxation enhances the body's natural healing process, boosts the immune system, and promotes overall physical well-being. The Getting Good Sleep program. According to the Centers for Disease Control, 1 in 3 adults don't get enough sleep, and sleep disorders and restless nights can significantly impact our physical and mental well-being, as well as our ability to make decisions, our memory. Lack of sleep contributes to mental health disorders, impairs the immune system function, lessens our reactions and ability to drive safely, and work performance. Wellness begins when we sleep deeply. During sleep, the body performs a number of repairing and maintaining processes that affect nearly every part of the body. Sleep disturbances are linked to higher levels of distress, including anxiety, depression, irritability, and lowered immune system and risk for diabetes and heart disease. Particular Sound of Music listening provides a powerful tool for achieving deep relaxation, reducing sleep disturbances, and promoting a restorative night's sleep. Numerous studies show the connection with the relaxation response makes positive changes in heart rate, respiration, and brain waves, lowering blood pressure and releasing stress, reducing hormones that contribute to the cortisol production that can also contribute to anxiety and depression, that also relieve anxiety and racing thoughts. The particular rhythmic patterns promote tranquility and facilitate the transition into deep sleep, just like listening to a lullaby. Mastering Challenging Times program. Throughout our lives, every one of us will face challenges, including daily stress of work and relationships, unexpected crises, and unique struggles that take a toll on our physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being. At different times in our life, we may face divorce, loss, needing to go to the hospital, urgent care, or outpatient surgery. Other stressors can be doctor's appointments and especially dentist appointments, litigation, public speaking, interviews, flying, stress from trauma and trauma triggers. Anxiety and stress can also occur in the form of positive changes, such as pursuing new opportunities or a job, retirement, starting over, starting a family or new career, or relocating to a different city. In listening to particular Sound of Music meditations, the relaxation response occurs and all the benefits as well. Knowing there's an easy-to-use, readily available method to deal with the challenges that can be applied during the process and make a connection to it throughout life gives us a reliable, affordable, and easy-to-use method at our fingertips, and that's a relief. The Spiritual Awakening and Transformative Experience Program. This program is for people on the spiritual awakening journey with or without the use of psychedelics, because the practices create a foundation for balancing the neurological and mental emotional systems while deepening understanding and enhancing inner wisdom. Meditations and practices create consistent micro adjustments that up-level all the systems and build over time for reliable heightening and accessing higher states to go deeper for progress and continued connection. There is an easy-to-follow roadmap with integrative content, not as a one-time intervention, but for consistent use, for long-lasting results, and for advancing intuition, insight, problem-solving, and creativity for our evolution. There's a direct connection to specific sacred sound, vibrations, and music patterns that have been used for thousands of years to induce altered states of consciousness and facilitate spiritual awakening. The intentional use of specific sound and music programs with psychedelic applications and for aftercare and without continues support for accessing insight, problem solving, and tools to navigate the inner landscapes. I encourage people to listen to all of the programs with speakers as well as earphones or earbuds for the full body listening experience, because listening occurs through our ears, but also the rest of our body, our skin and bones and knowing. So share the programs with a friend or family member in person or virtually. For people who are interested in more research, go to the resource page at the number 3 melete.com. That's 3 Melete. All of the programs are available for anyone and are used by practitioners as guides for treatment, for support, aftercare, or for direct referral for people to use on their own, because the use are not a one-time intervention, but lifelong methods that deepen over time. In closing, with grace, strength, emotional balance, and resilience, with enhanced problem-solving, creativity, intuition, and insight, and with a deepened interconnection and expanded self-awareness for a more fulfilled and harmonious existence, all you have to do is listen and transform for our evolution. Thanks for the opportunity to share the information. Send questions to Susan at the number 3 melete.com. That's Susan at 3melete.com.
Wow, thanks for your presentation. I got a few questions. First of all, about yourself. Tell us about how your intuitive abilities developed. I mean, you told us a lot of studies you did, about a lot of studies with a lot of people, but you know, tell us a bit more about you know, what how it works and how it developed.
I was born this way, like Lady Gaga says. So I've always been intuitive. I just didn't know it. I mean, I didn't know it because you don't really compare yourself in that way with other people. And even in my 20s and 30s, I didn't really have an understanding of my intuition in a lot of ways. So it develops over time, and it doesn't really change. It's just that you become aware, at least for me, I became more aware of how I was using it and the applications. So for I have different auditory intuitive abilities. So if I meet a person and I speak with them and I don't see them for 15 years, when I hear their voice, I will remember the whole conversation. I also can kind of read, if I tune into people's vocal patterns, I can read information based on their vocal patterns. I can hear trauma or just different issues. So that's kind of auditory memory, but I also can tell when people are listening to things, because I also see energy. I don't, it's not like it's on all the time, but when I tune into it, if someone is listening, I can tell how it's affecting them. And then depending on what they're going through, if it's a bigger experience for them, their auric field changes. And so I see that as well.
Oh, any ideas how people can learn to be more intuitive?
In general, or in relation to auditory?
Both.
Okay. I was just listening to a woman talk about that we have just our basic 5 senses have many more dimensions to them. She wasn't even talking about intuition, and that the more that we are outside, that our abilities become heightened because we're exposed to more sounds, and that we're inside almost 90, especially in Western culture, we're inside about 90% of the time. So being outside in nature helps us with auditory listening as well as visual and also feeling awareness. So There's lots of things that people can do. Other kinds of intuition are remembering your dreams at night, waking up and writing your dreams down right away. And it's not that you're looking for some great dream message. It's that you're starting to tune into a more subtle dimension, and that helps to kind of refine that level of intuition. And paying attention to it's a game you can play with who's calling on the phone to see. I play the game of, if I'm watching a television show, to say what decision people are going to make, what house they're going to buy, or just goofy to make it fun.
Nice.
So different ways to do that.
Yeah, as my friend once said, just be still enough to hear it.
True. I mean, that speaks to doing meditation and kind of refining all of our abilities. It's slowing down.
It's interesting, when I think about the voice, a lot of people talk about the tonality of the voice or timbre, and or tone of a person's voice. But what I've found is actually the song that you sing is way more important. And we're really sensitive to critical songs, like don't you know what I mean? Da 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 versus don't you know what I mean? You know what I mean, right?
Uh-huh. So are you speaking about a life song that we might have, like a life dream that Jung talks about, that we have one prominent dream that is predominantly influential? So are you speaking about a life song, or the songs that we sing in the moment that are kind of running through our head?
No, I'm talking about the actual songs you sing as you speak, because we all sing when we speak, which is behind that would be the things you're talking about, right? So if someone's got trauma, they might still be going, well, or what? What? They're singing that type of song. What? Right? They're a little defensive, a little scared, right? Where if someone has gotten over the trauma, then they can sink into that flow, where the heart will actually start coming through, which is a different song that you sing as you speak.
That's really cool.
So I've got a question here about the music, because you got music for all these different issues: pain and sleep and managing challenging times and spiritual transformative experiences, right? What's the difference between the music that you do for those different things? How is the music different for each of those issues?
I would say it's less about the music, because the patterns are what carry and transform the listener. It's more about the protocols, the applications.
I'm not sure what you mean. Tell me more.
So what I mean is, if the sound patterns are consistent, meaning there doesn't need to be a whole different range for the application. It's how the person uses it. So if a pain patient can access deeper states of consciousness and relaxation, where they go into that state where they're developing resilience by transferring into the relaxation response, they get the benefits that also have besides lessening their pain, they're also going to have the same benefits of developing their creativity, insight, problem solving, and intuition, because going into those states helps us connect with those places. So it's the protocol of application. So for example, in the spiritual awakening protocols, it's it's a bigger program. There's more practices and applications, but essentially the system is the same. So I think
You
of it
say
as,
practices and applications, so it's not just music, it's like guided meditations and stuff as
yes,
well.
yes,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So I kind of use the way I look at the programs are meditation, sound, uh, all kind of wrapped together, and even the drumming to me is also has a shamanic element to it. So it's this repetition, this continuous repetition that takes us into that place and holds us there until we're done. So I think of in the Aboriginal culture where they use the didgeridoo, the sound is, when you're going into the sound, there's a beginning and then there's a middle and an end, but that sound holds you in that space. And it's particular sounds that do that. I mean, you have different sound patterns that you've made that sustain that person's place in that other state of consciousness where they have access to their healing.
The way I would put it, what it sounds like you're doing is the basis is by getting people into a higher state of consciousness or a stable, consistent vibration, then that helps just about everything.
Yeah, that's
Uh-huh.
true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. I mean, if you can get people into a state of oneness or even universal love, I mean, there's no more a lot of things. I mean, everything often resolves. So, although I've found that there's many things you can do for these different issues, and I can give you an idea of what I would do because I've got over 100 CDs for different issues as well. And the first of all, when it comes to pain, the first thing I would do is add more low frequencies. I mean, if you can, there's really two different ways to actually multiple ways to go for pain. We've got a whole medical sound association. So we've got like a bunch of doctors that created a whole treatment plan on our medical sound association. And so you can get people blissed out, and that creates all types of different dopamine and all different types of things that go to all the different cells, and it will completely take you out of the pain. But sometimes what I've learned is sometimes it will actually resolve the pain forever, but rarely does it. And once you get back into your normal state of consciousness, the pain returns. Sometimes it does go away. Whereas the other protocol is to actually get sound on the pain, on the actual cells, because then, and that's all of the vibroacoustics, or you can even play headphones on the pain. And that's like so much more effective, right? For actually getting rid of it, right? So when you do that, that's where you really want bass. And there's people that say very specific frequencies of bass for actual different pains. And with some research, we could actually make that really, really cool. But yeah, if you can get people just kind of blissed out, they'll definitely forget the pain. And sometimes those drugs that the brain creates will actually get rid of it for good.
So what I found also is that with the pain patients, that they needed to have a choice of, if I said, listen to this, research shows that if they have a choice of what they get to listen to, that it is an empowerment piece that allows them, it's kind of part of the process of them gaining control. So I did not, in my research, I didn't say, you have to listen to this. I gave them choices. And the interesting part was that they all chose the same thing, but they had a choice.
That's cool. I love that. I love that. So for sleep, of course, the main thing for sleep that I think is really important is to actually not have very many high frequencies or odd harmonic timbres, which are activating. Basically, sleep CDs should be basically boring. Right, right.
Right. Well, I don't know. I don't think anybody would say what I have is boring, but it is repetitive.
Uh-huh.
Meaning it's not, I don't find it boring, but it is repeating patterns. And kind of back to the pain patients, they all chose Tibetan bowl sounds. So they chose deeper sounds
Uh-huh.
when
Nice.
they were given a choice.
Yeah, the repetitive patterns will put the left brain to sleep, because the left brain, once it hears something 5 or 6 times, it goes, "You're not doing anything different. I'm going to sleep." And then the right brain takes over, and that's much better for sleep. Yeah, excellent. Managing challenging times. That's interesting, because it's really, my first thought on that one is to get someone to a place of peace, because the more peaceful you are, and also if you're more expanded consciousness as well, you have more capacity to deal with stuff. Right.
Well, that goes back to generally when people access different than ordinary consciousness, that they are going to have developing resilience. But I like to always say these are not one-time interventions. These are, you might say that the managing challenging times is a way to get people to access using a program all the time. Because if you have a relationship with that piece of music, what I have noticed in other people and myself is that once I start to hear the very beginning, I will automatically just take a deep breath and relax and connect to it, because I know it, I trust it, and I know where I'm going to go with it. So it's useful to do if you're, waiting for outpatient surgery or going to the dentist or something, but also having a previous relationship with it helps to connect to it more quickly and easily.
Cool. Cool. And then the spiritual formative experiences. It's interesting because, when I think of that, I mean, there's a few things that I do. Well, first of all, is there anything you do other than just, repetition and um, entrainment and certain anything else you do differently to get people into a higher state of consciousness?
Well, part of it is the guidance that comes on the front end, right?
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So the guidance on the front end is the directive.
Okay. Cool. So it's like really guiding them into that state first, and then using the music to hold it.
Exactly. So
Uh-huh.
if a person who's doing spiritual transformative, I mean, they know they're on that journey, they've had an experience, or they want to, to me, one of the issues about spiritual transformative experiences are often peak or a spike. And then when you reintegrate back in, there's it's a disparity between I was here before, but then I had this peak experience. So how do you integrate that? And that is in your neurological system, needs to re-equilibrate your electromagnetic system. And instead of having, because human beings are we love peak experiences. We kind of crave them, and there's nothing wrong with them. But if for a lot of people that they're seeking to integrate their experience so they can manage it, because in really big spiritual transformative experiences, sometimes near-death experiences for sure, but also there are other kinds, they disrail the person, and so they need tools to reintegrate.
Yeah, it seems like the number one problem is when you have this peak experience, you see how everything is like love and light, right? And then you come back and you go, I suck.
Or
because I'm not in that state all the time. And then people could even commit suicide because they realize how much they're running these patterns and they don't know how to get out of them.
and that to me speaks to guidance. So meaning that in older cultures, there would be a local person who was already accessing those states and managing life and understanding it. So they would be taken under their wing to help manage and understand and integrate that experience instead of having that huge disparity. So for the spiritual awakening program is about giving tools that help to having somebody say this sucks would mean that perhaps they have unresolved issues. So there are tools that people can use to continue to work through those issues and equilibrate their system as well.
Nice. Have you been working very much with psychedelics with your music?
I haven't, but I am looking to connect with some organizations, like a couple different ones that I'm interested in, because I know that the program would be really beneficial.
Yeah, I think the potential is huge when really done right. Yeah, I like the fact that you're actually not just playing music, that you're doing leading them into it and really setting the space and then even providing us support around it. That seems really cool.
Thanks. Yeah, I had a friend that came back from she went up to the Amazon and she did ayahuasca. She's young, very young, in her 20s. And I looked at her energy system and I was like, whoa, she needs some help, because your energy system gets very overstimulated. It's okay. But then coming back into Western culture, it's very intense. And so, the person can lose some of the benefits of their experience unless they can manage that energy, because your heart is also really open.
Okay, so I got a question, unusual question. How's my energy system?
Oh, I would have to probably tune into you more than just right now, but I would say you have some energy on your left shoulder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You go, mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very bright over there, so you probably have I don't know if that's like some guidance that you have around your left shoulder.
It's interesting. I broke out a windshield when I was in high school with my face.
Oh.
And so I've got like a torn vein or something in my left neck, which causes, some opening and some problems there.
Oh no. Okay, so sometimes I'm dyslexic, so
The other side.
I'm talking about your right shoulder.
Oh, well, when you're looking at a screen, it's the other side. Yeah. So my right side. Yeah. Well, this morning I woke up with my right hip really not feeling well.
Mm. No,
Okay.
it's not pain energy that I'm seeing. It's different.
Cool. Cool. Well, thank you so much for your work and your presentation. Any other things you'd like to share before we end?
No, I really appreciate you and Loren Gailey for having your work that you both have been doing for a really long time and keeping the energy open for sound healing to continue, because it's Edgar Cayce predicted it was going to be the way of healing a long time ago, and we have to keep that going. We need more people to keep doing that, because it is very potent and gentle as well, and incredible.
Cool. Thank you so much. And thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay. Take care.